question of whether or not virtual reality can be used to reduce anxiety in public speaking. And our collaborators in Taiwan designed a virtual reality app to use with Google Cardboard that creates an artificial audience for the subjects to present in front of. And
look into how anonymity affects group collaboration through CMC. So we, working with our teams in Taiwan, we created a chat room where two participants would interact with each other in order to complete the desert survival task, which is a popular team building exercise.
So our group was interested in looking at how people interact with a telepresence robot in a collaborative task, because there's some literature that suggests that when you have co-located members and remotely located members, there tends to be an in-group that forms an exclusion of those that are video conferencing or on potentially on Skype or something like that. So we wanted to see if that plays out in this scenario.
In modern romance, and so we wanted to study how people portray themselves and then in turn how they perceive others when talking to a romantic interest, like via text, because we had believed that people would try to possibly portray themselves a certain way, like differently than how they would in face-to-face.
Like if we can use computer-mediated communication to develop a viable alternative to face-to-face dance instruction. And so
So our group was interested in privacy using mobile apps, and so we were interested in looking at whether increasing people's awareness of the privacy sharing practices of mobile apps would affect whether they perceive the app as more trustworthy, whether it affects how comfortable they are entering their data into the app, and whether they are more likely to recommend the app to friends or family.
And classrooms that were taught over video conference, so the facilitator of the conversation or the teacher was in another location, and our partners in Taiwan looked at classes that were taught over Skype, so there was no co-location of students. So I guess it was probably the most interesting through our observations and interviews of students who participated in these settings was how certain facets of a digital classroom could actually be applied to a real classroom.
So for question, why do people want smartwatches? How do they expect to use it for communication, especially for calling and texting? So we conducted interviews of people who actually owned a smartwatch, and we identified 5 contexts where they would want to use a smartwatch, perhaps over the phone. And we also conducted surveys of people who actually don't own a smartwatch and asked them why do they want to own a smartwatch, how do they expect to use one for communication if they want.
Asked our participants to write 4 like hypothetical emails, one to a professor, one to a parent, one to a peer, and one to a friend. And then ask some questions on ranking the cognitive load and how much formality in terms of language and structure they use.
Where we had people make judgments of posts with a selfie and the exact same post without a selfie, and we rated it on 2 different levels. They made judgments about the message itself, so how appropriate the message was, and then they made judgments about the poster as well, how narcissistic they perceived the poster to be, as well as how socially attractive they perceived the poster to be. We have some results that definitely do not favor selfie posting.
For the students, a lot of work went into it beyond, I think, a regular class because they have the team projects, but at the same time, they have to work out how to work with people in Taiwan, so their collaborators were in National Tsing Hua University in Taiwan, had to work out time zone differences, cultural differences, language differences, and some differences in the expertise and things like that. So I think everybody has done a really fantastic job with